Om Ajnanatimirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prishtabhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine. Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Prachadine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshutarine. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhaktivinoda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jai. Okay, so we did up till verse 16 last week. Anybody remembers what was the discussion last week we had for the chapter? 6 to 16. Anything that you remember from our last week's discussion? Who were present last week? Not much. No one remembers. Nothing worth remembering from this chapter. I'm waiting. Anything that you could remember? Any one thing that we discussed?
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
One thing that I remembered is that last time we did talk about the demonic person's qualities, and that we did discuss that they mostly acquire those qualities from the womb of their mother already, and then it is manifested when they are born slowly. So this is one point I remember. And also that they are unable to distinguish what is the right way to do. They just work on their whims and fancies.
Yeah, thank you. It's a good point. What's the difference between a pure devotee and, sorry, not a pure devotee, a demoniac and a divine person? Anybody can answer, not just you, Achyuta Mataji. In general, what's the difference between a demoniac and a divine person? A basic difference. We read it in one of Prabhupada's purports.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
So I would say pretty much someone that's really geared towards bhakti is not, it's basically going away from the demoniac by, doing daily japas, being with sadhu sangha, doing bhakti association, reading books and so forth. So that's getting away from all of those negative activities. And pretty much being born in, pious family, like Brahmanic family, who are actually doing daily bhakti and so forth.
So broadly speaking, who are following what Krishna is asking us to do, or
Yes.
So those people, and so who they even might have the knowledge, but then they don't use it. They're still demoniac. But when they use it for service, that they automatically become divine. Hiranyakashipu had a lot of knowledge, but he was using it he wanted to kill Vishnu. That was his goal.
Yeah, he did. He took Krishna Bhagwan's name, but in a negative way, just like Ravan did. Ravan always thought about Krishna Bhagwan, right? Trying to kill Krishna all the time.
You mean Shishupal?
No, I mean Ravan also, right? He tried to kill Krishna, and he thought about Krishna all the time, but he thought about Krishna in a
Are you
negative.
talking about Kansa?
Oh, yeah,
Kansa,
Kansa. Yeah.
Ravana. Yeah, I was confused. Ravana. Okay, yes, Kansa, you're right. He was always thinking about Krishna, and
Yeah.
he wanted to kill Krishna. And so,
It was
yeah,
his good deed in his previous life that he thought about Krishna, but because of his negativity, he wanted to kill him all the time. But in the end, he attained moksha, right?
yeah, yeah, yeah. Till we don't have a clear purpose, a grounding, a very foundational principles, that there is no impetus to overcome distractions in life. Well, why should I give up my bad habits? There has to be a reason behind it. So knowing our purpose is very important. And knowing our purpose doesn't mean we become perfect. It means we know what we are supposed to be doing. As the saying goes, that the best alarm clock is the purpose is the best alarm clock. So that's the difference, that if we have a clear purpose in life and we're trying to live according to it, according to our plans instead of the plans of our mind, then we get spiritual strength. Yog balena. Krishna says this comes in the 7th chapter, right? No, sorry, 8th chapter. Prayan kale mansa chalena bhaktya yukto yog balena chaiva. Yog balena. So he talks of yog bala. You get spiritual strength by following what you want to do instead of following what our mind wants to do. And that also gives us the satisfaction that we are looking for. When we are able to do what we want to do, not what our mind wants us to do, that gives us satisfaction.
It's very hard though, Prabhuji. It's very hard because you're always fighting with your mind all day long.
Yeah, you also have to understand that you don't have to be perfect. Don't overwhelm yourself with the goal of perfection, and don't undermine yourself if you fail. Guilt should be used the way we all use what's that called, hing, asafoetida. How tiny you put it in there, it's practically invisible even when you're taking it out of the bottle. That's the amount of guilt you should have. Not more than that, even if you fail. It's not that people who or in one sense, people, purity is not it's not like black and white. One day you have it and the next day, one day you don't have it, the next day you have it. Purity is a process. It comes gradually. Each one of us is a pure devotee in our own sense. We do something with that purity and that desire and intention at some time or the other. So I just would say, don't beat yourself up just because you're not able to do it. Everybody's going through that. Everybody has to face the mind.
So Prabhuji, one good thing I said is you catch yourself, right? If you're, if you think that, something is wrong, or, you think you're going in the wrong path, you catch yourself. So that's a good thing about, being in this situation that we're in.
Yeah. Once somebody asked Prabhupada, how many pure devotees are there in your movement? Prabhupada looked to his disciple and said, how many devotees are there in our movement? So what Prabhupada was indirectly saying, that every disciple of mine is a pure devotee in his own right sense, in his own right. So take account of your successes. And the purity is perceivable. It unfolds in stages. As I said, everybody has some purity. We might not be anyabhilashita shunya, but we have some purity, right? Somewhere or the other, some little purity is there. As long as we have the desire to serve Krishna, taking shelter itself means to be pure. That's the practice. And if we try to fix our anarthas one by one, That's never going to happen. We all have a, how to say, there is Swarup Lakshan and there is Tathaksha Lakshan. Swarup Lakshan means, so the Swarup Lakshan of divine qualities is surrender. And from that one divine quality, all the other Tathashta Lakshans, secondary Lakshans like compassion, tolerance, kindness, all that comes. Similarly, in the demoniac aspect also, the Swarup Lakshan, the most important quality, the essential quality is selfishness. If you see this whole chapter, it's all about selfishness. And I will be rich. I know what is to be done. I know that there is no God. I will make my own ways of living. I'll make my own way of praying, or whatever it is. It's all about me. There's selfishness. There's intense selfishness. And from that one Swarup Lakshan comes a lot of secondary Lakshanas: envy, pride, greed, harshness, so on and so forth. So if we just try to fix all these things, it's very difficult. But we can also we can always try to be a servant. That's important. If we try to be a servant, then that's more than enough for us to please Krishna. Right? Like His Holiness Kadambakanan Swami Maharaj used to say, I don't know how much love I have for Krishna, but I love devotional service. If you fill your life with our life with love, then the purity of character will come from that. We don't have to individually fix our anarthas. So yeah, so we all are pure in our sense, some form or the other. Okay. What else? So we did up to the 16th verse and 17th, and I had the slide somewhere. Give me 1 minute. The slide had the description for all these qualities that we're talking about. Yeah. So we did up to 16, which was the result of the demoniac work. 17, 18 is how do they preach, how do they interact with others. And then from 19 onwards, it's all about the fate of the demoniac people. Krishna is going to explain how they are pushed into hellish planets. So we are at 17 and 18. So let's start with 17. Self-complacent and always impudent, deluded by wealth and false prestige, they sometimes proudly perform sacrifices, in name only, without following any rules and regulations. So there are no rules and regulations they want to follow. As Prabhupada has taught us in the second chapter, Prabhupada and Krishna also, regulative principles of freedom. The more you regulate, the more free you become. But the demoniac are completely opposite of that. So self-complacent means we are right. I'm right. So I'm self-complacent. And impudent means others are wrong. So arrogance includes both of them, self-complacent and impudence, but they're slightly different. So I'm right and others are wrong. That's a basic definition of being arrogant. Yes, for functioning in this life, we need some confidence in ourselves. That's fine, but the overconfidence can become a problem. Then we cannot improve. We all must have met some or the other devotee who's just overconfident that they know they have figured out everything. And then even if you want to, you can't help them because they're just not open to receiving anything from anybody, not just you. I might not be the person they have to receive from, but then they're not able to receive from anybody. Duryodhana is an example of Atma-sambhava, that self-complacent and impudent. He didn't want to take advice from anyone who didn't fit his view. So these people, they don't care for authority. They are absorbed in delusion of wealth and prestige. They may do some sacrifices here and there, but that's also for the sake of name and fame. Okay? So name and fame only, as Prabhupada, as Krishna is telling us. So demons do yajna for namesake. So they lose sense of purpose in life. Religion just becomes like a a fancy dress that they have to wear to show off to people, a new jewelry set or something like that. Prabhupada in this purport somewhere, he's where is this? He talks about people who, they take the dress of the renounced order of life and engage in all nonsense in that dress. So they not only ruin themselves, but also ruin others along with them. That's a big thing. And then Prabhupada is saying, let's see what Prabhupada is saying. Thinking themselves all in all, not caring for any authority or scripture, the demoniacs sometimes performed so-called religious or sacrificial rites. And since they do not believe in authority, they're very impudent. They think that whatever path one can create is one's own path. There is no such thing as a standard path one has to follow. So as I was saying, if you see across all the demoniac qualities, one that is predominant is selfishness. And from that selfishness are coming all these different offshoots, self-complacent, impudent, illusion. So everything is coming from that one. So the journey of a devotee is from selfishness to selflessness. And it's not easy. It takes time, it takes effort, which you all are putting in. It's so hard to understand that I'm not the center of this universe. Sometimes we feel that, oh no, I'm okay, I'm doing a good job, I'm pure, I'm getting purer and purer. But when things come, when they hit us, then we realize, oh no, these things are somewhere still hidden in me. The thought that I am the center of the universe. Why are these people not praising me? Why are these people not serving me? Why are they, what are these guys doing? That thing comes in. That's a big challenge. But then everybody can be a center of the universe. It's why do only I have to be? Because everybody has Krishna sitting in their hearts. There could be different center of universes according to different people. Just like an example, if you see a map, a flat map, like a paper on a piece of paper, if somebody in France is drawing it, they'll probably make France in the center of the page, and then you'll see that Americas are on the left and the Asia is on the right. But if somebody in China makes a map, they'll put China in the center, and then Europe becomes on the left and America becomes on the right. But if you go to a globe, which is like a ball, then from whichever point you look, it can be a center for anybody. Like they could be the center at any point. So you have to move away from the map and come to the thought of a globe, as to understand that part. So yeah, it's sense of if you really want to develop this sense of not being the center of the universe, service helps with that a lot. If you think I'm the center of the world, we'll not have any thought of service. Everybody will be somebody who will serve me. So that's the problem that comes in. So here, so Krishna is highlighting, and Prabhupada is telling us this, that they are complacent and impudent. And then there's this phrase used, which Krishna uses, Dambhena vidhi, or it's avidhi purvakam. Avidhi purvakam means without following any rules and regulations. So rules and regulations given in the scriptures. Avidhi means not according to the vidhi. So they're not completely anti-scriptures. Right? It was also used in the 9th chapter, right, which was that Ye apyanya devta bhakta Yajante Shridhanvata Teapi Mam Eva Kaunteya Bhajate Avidhi Purvakam. So the Avidhi work came also there. Like people, how do they, like for example, people celebrating Ganesh Chaturthi or Durga Puja in India. The deities are so big there, probably according to the size of people's egos. They're not doing it to glorify the Lord, but they're glorifying their own ego. That's Avidhi Purvakam. That's one example of Avidhi Purvakam when people do that. And yeah, so doing that all for namesake, like yagyas and these ritualistic activities, not for any purpose. That is all. That's not desirable at all. It doesn't lead to any transformation in us. Transformation only happens when we connect with Krishna. And if we're not happy, we seek happiness of ego through all these other things. So all the rituals then which are supposed to be liberating for us become binding action. They have an opposite effect. 18. Bewildered by false ego, strength, pride, lust, and anger, the demons become envious of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is situated in their own bodies and in the bodies of others, and blaspheme against the real religion. Ahankaram balam darpam kam krodha chasamshrita mam atma paradehishu pradvishanto abhay suyakha. So all of us are bound by the nature we are born with. We discussed this, right? We talked about nature, nurture, and culture. Demoniacs take shelter of the lower natures. Ahankar. Right? Ahankar means false ego. Darpam. Darpam is showing off for attracting praise. Like demons flaunt their strength. Balam Darpam. And then Kama is desire to enjoy, and Krodha is a rage we get when our desires are not fulfilled. And what do demons do? They take ashraya of this Kama Krodha. Everybody has to go through ups and downs. It's not that only demons go through that. But depending on our nature, we may take shelter of different things. Right? So by being in bhakti, by being conscious of what we are doing in this process, we take things forward by taking shelter of Krishna. But when we take shelter of worldly things, then that has an opposite effect. And how does one take shelter of things like anger? Okay, so whenever there is a problem, I become furious towards others and delight in that anger. So that's taking shelter of an anger. Like at work. I had a boss many, many years ago, and he would call many of his subordinates at 7 in the evening in his office, and then he would start screaming, "Oh, you didn't do this, you didn't do that." And he was famous, notorious for that attitude. So the people take shelter of anger. They become furious whenever there's a problem. But to overcome these lower desires, we need to take shelter of the higher ones. Here, important thing is Krishna has brought the word mam here. Mam atma paradehishu. Okay? They become envious of Supreme Personality of Godhead. So Krishna has brought himself here. Now, mam word is not been used till now, but here Krishna has brought it now. He has not yet talked about his relationship with divine and demoniac. Krishna has not talked about bhakti as divine quality because here he's talking about material qualities. Right? Prabhupada calls these qualities transcendental because they help in moving towards transcendence. But divine and demoniac, the qualities that are being discussed here, they're all material qualities. And so that's, but now Krishna is bringing himself here. He's brought out the word mam here. He's now bringing himself into the picture. And he's bringing himself into the picture as the super soul. Super soul sitting in everyone's heart. And that's how Krishna is describing the example. Situated in their bodies and in the bodies of others. So Krishna is situated in everybody's body as the super soul. And as we were just discussing, the attitude of demons is also very negative towards Krishna. And that envy, as long as it's in my heart, it's envy. But then how does envy express itself? It expresses itself as blasphemy. Like Shishupal. Shishupal was envious by nature. But then what was the outcome of that envy? He was always blaspheming Krishna. And they become blasphemous of their own well-wisher, Krishna. Krishna says this in the end of last verse of the 5th chapter. Bhoktaram yajna tapasam sarva lokam maheshwaram suhirdam sarva bhutanam gyatva mam shantim rachyati. Suhirdam sarva bhutanam. So Krishna is Suhirda. He's the well-wisher of all. But what am I doing? In demoniac species, I am being deranged by fantasies about temporary material pleasures. And by that excessive involvement, I cannot even bring myself to spirituality. So I sentence myself to repeated miseries. Let's see if Prabhupada is highlighting anything. Okay, 19. So from 19 to 24, nearly all the verses, now Krishna is going to tell us what is the fate of these demoniac people. Okay, those who are envious and mischievous, who are the lowest among men, I perpetually cast into the ocean of material existence, into various demonic species of life. This is an interesting part here. Krishna is saying, I push them into demoniac lives. So what happens to people from 18th verse or even earlier than that? Such persons are thrown into further lower demoniac species. What does it mean? So for a long time, and that Krishna is saying, Ajashram, forever. They are put into a demoniac body forever. So what does it look like to all of you? And Krishna is a God who has he's just a punishing God, like all the other scriptures mention. How is he different if he's also pushing us into demoniac species? What are your thoughts on that? It's an actual question. I'm looking for answers. It's an actual question.
Prabhuji, he wants us to get to think about him more and more.
Your voice is breaking, Mataji.
Anytime I say, oh God. So one thought.
Your voice is breaking.
Me?
Sorry. Now I can hear you. Yes, please go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, so saying that Krishna puts them in that situation because he wants them to think about him. Like when you're in trouble for
I don't know. Is it just me or everybody else is also? Mataji's voice
situation, and it would take them along to
Breaking, yeah.
Yes, Prabhu, the voice is not clear.
Yes. Atil Veli Mataji, can you speak again? Your voice was not at all clear. It was breaking.
Sorry, Prabhuji. Probably the connection's weak at the hotel here. So what I was saying, can you hear me now?
Now it's better.
Okay, I will type it up. Okay. So what I was saying was that we get to these situations because of our karma, and Krishna, the Lord, like when we're in trouble, you said, "Oh God, please help me." So it's kind of dual, right? You're doing bad karma, so you're in a situation, and because you're in a situation, you're thinking of Krishna.
We lost you there, Matri. Anybody else wants to? Thank you, Matri. Anybody else? This verse makes us feel that Krishna is just a punishing God sitting up in the clouds like any other mentioned in any other philosophy.
So, Prabhuji, Krishna, we in fact, when we were kids also, it was always right? If you do this, means God is going to punish you. God is not there to punish us, right? It has never been there. That is what we have been taught, or that is what we have been raised with, giving this statement all the time. So there's always a thing, right? And you mentioned in the earlier chapters also, B, C, and D. So we don't have control over the birth and the death, but we always have the control over the C. That is the choices we make, right? So in this case, like with the demoniac personality, we're making all the wrong choices. So based on the choices that we make, we get the result of that, right? And so in this case, like based on the karma that you are doing, obviously based on the karma and whatever is your thought process or the process of your being in that particular existence. So when you are doing bad karma, obviously you're not going to get, you are definitely going to get reactions for that, right? The sinful reactions you are going to get because of the karma. And so it's not about Krishna punishing you. It's the repercussion of all the bad karmas that you are doing. And I also remember what Kunti used to say, right? She used to say, Krishna, give me all the pain, because in the misery only I tend to remember. Whenever when I'm in the mode of happiness, or when I'm happy, obviously we tend to enjoy all these material gains and material piece of existence around us. But when we are in the misery, that's the time we remember Krishna the most. So there are multi factors to this statement that is put here, Prabhuji, and also based on the choices you make at the time of your that is what you remember, right? So all that factor is the. So it's not about Krishna that we have to blame. We have to go. We have to think above this fact about like Krishna is the doer of things. No, our own karma, our own unfulfilled desires, our own mode of nature, material nature that we are always into, and the choices that we make. These are all the factors for what state of existence we are in, either in this birth or the subsequent birth that will take. So it's never to blame Krishna, or never to say that Krishna as a parent, as if our Paramatma is here to punish us. So that is my take on this, Prabhu.
Yeah, thank you. That was a good summarization. You borrowed a good point about choice, right? So that's a good, because Krishna himself in the 9th chapter, he says, Api chet suduracharo bhajante mamananyava sadhureva samantavya samya vivasito hisaha. So suduracharo. So durachar is bad behavior. Sudurachar is extremely bad behavior. Krishna says they are also protected. So even the lowest can attain him. The deciding factor is my desire, my choice. But once we make that choice, we are bound to live through that choice. Right? If I want a dog's body, I get it, but then I have to live in it. There's no escaping from it. That's a very good point you bring on. What else? What are the thoughts?
So, Prabhu, your question was why does Krishna put one in the lower species? Is that basically what you were saying?
Yeah, because at least because this verse can easily be used by people from other philosophies to say that, hey, you are also saying the same thing, and why do you kind of criticize us that going to hell? Even your book says going to hell. People who don't follow Krishna will go to hell. We also say the same thing. If you don't follow Jesus, you're also going to go to hell. So they can misuse this verse. So we should have this understanding what it means. So yeah, that's what I meant, bro.
Yeah. So the way I see it, it's like putting one into a lower species, taking birth in a lower species. It's not merely a punishment, but it's an opportunity for the soul to correct its path, okay? And for the soul to progress spiritually, I would say learn from consequences of its actions and turn towards a path towards Krishna, so towards, getting on the right track, I would say. And let's see, Yeah, I think that's the, it's spiritually, the soul is, evolving into a higher a consciousness, and it's a purification process, basically.
Yeah, that's a good point. It's a purification process. And actually, what happens is that when Krishna puts somebody in a hellish condition, he's actually shortening their suffering, and he wants to accelerate their learning. So he sends them to a severe transitional classroom called hell, right? This classroom, the miserable nature of material existence becomes very clear to everybody who goes there, and the consequences of indulging in wrong things, that becomes very, very clear. The lessons that people could not grasp while being on the earthly planets, they're able to grasp it very, very quickly when they go to hell. So it's not condemning somebody to hell, it's actually education. And by that, they can free themselves from suffering, that suffering. So the way if you look at it, it's very hard to make a comeback. It's very easy to stay in shape, but to get into that process of staying in shape is always hard. So similarly, it's very hard to come out of a demoniac mindset. If you have been consciously being in a divine mindset, at least trying to be in a divine mindset, that's okay. But coming from a demoniac to divine is really hard. So there has to be some strict kind of strict ways to fix that, right? So if I touch something in this material world that I should not have touched, it just sticks around for a very long time. That's the way to look at it. So yeah, that's a good point you bring out. Yeah, so these all are good points that you're bringing out. And
So you are saying this hellish planet is a correction center?
yes, and that to a very severe correction center. Because
But if we try to go ahead, Prabhu.
if we are suffering on this material world also, here on earth also, but there is a good number of people who don't even realize the suffering. But suddenly, if I put them in a place where the suffering is very much and the pleasures are either not there or very, very minimal, you will be able to understand the suffering much better. Then you'll be much more inclined to come out of hell. Yes, please go ahead. What were you saying, Madhu?
So Prabhuji, you are saying anybody who goes to the hellish planet, they get corrected and then they become a divine soul? If that
Well, they
was
don't
the case, then they
necessarily
would.
become a divine soul. They at least get a chance to become a divine soul. But that too is not, it's not for everybody that, okay, yeah, you will come out of the hell and you are a good guy again. No, it all depends on your choice, right? As you said, there also you have a choice.
Evils, yeah.
You might continue, you might still not get fixed. You said, no, I am going to enjoy hair forever.
I forgot that something, yeah.
Yeah. Just like the story of Indra, right? He comes as a pig on the earth and
Yes,
he's
yes.
like, oh, I don't want to go back there. They're telling him, you're a king of heaven. You have such beautiful palaces there, and everything is perfect. No, I want to stay with my pigs. Then what does Brahma do? He kills his wife. Oh, my children are still here. He kills all his children. Oh, my body is still here. They kill his body. So it's really hard for us to come out of this mindset. So Krishna kind of just accelerates everything quickly for some time. That's what he does. That's his purpose, not to punish, but more to correct. That's the thing we have to understand. Anybody else? Any more thoughts?
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. I was thinking of this example that if suppose somebody is addicted to stealing, he would be thrown into the jail, and okay, for some tenure, he will be staying there and again come back. But since he's addicted, he will again do the same thing, go back and repeat the same process again and again. And jail authorities might think that now this person is addicted to it and he may be dangerous. He may be put into that place permanently. And now when that person knows that now he is no way out, probably he may think of going, correcting himself, or maybe he will remain the same. Still, the choice remains with him, but then he has to suffer according to what he has done. So that's what I was thinking.
Yeah, no, that's a good point to bring out. Yes, I just want to highlight one thing here, that Krishna has said in the 9th chapter himself that the most sinful can get elevated. How do we connect that to this verse, right? Apiche Sudracharo Vijantevan, at 9:30. How do we connect it to this verse? Okay. The way to connect both of these verses, how to bridge them, is you have to understand that Krishna knows exactly how to give out various kinds of circumstances in the life of a jiva so that he or she will become sensitized and perfect. So this is an expression of tough love that Krishna is giving. So what Krishna is looking for from us is unconditional love. Right? And that is the greatest happiness. So everything is organized in Krishna's energy specifically for us to come to that point. If one is pushed to the lower species of life, it's like a timeout. But in the grand scheme, every living entity is to come back to Godhead. In the Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya Leela 20th chapter, I think Mahaprabhu is speaking to Sanatana Goswami there. He says, Maya Mugdha Jivera Nahi Swata Krishna Gyan. Jivera Kripa Kaile Krishna Ved Puran. That the conditioned soul cannot revive his or her Krishna consciousness by his own effort. But out of causeless mercy, Lord Krishna, he compiles Vedic literature, he sends devotees, he sends corrections. It requires intervention for Jiva to come out of that illusion. So this is the intervention that Krishna is putting in by sending them in this lower species. So it's just an expression of Krishna's tough love. Yeah. So that's how you bridge, because anybody can ask you this question. Hey, 9:30 Krishna says, Apiche Sujacharo. Here he's saying, Shipam Yajasam Ashubham, Ashriveho Yonishu. Krishna is hypocrite? No, he's not a hypocrite. That's how do you bridge both those verses. But the choice is always ours. Yes, somebody might not want to get corrected even after going to hellish planets. He might have to stay longer there, for longer time. Probably Krishna has to give him some specific kind of misery that he wakes out of his illusion. You never know. You never know. But Krishna does that. Krishna does that. And it's all out of love that he does that. Otherwise, people just don't want to come to him. They're looking for happiness in lower things, but they don't want to come to him.
But Prabhuji, it is not asking too much from people in this material world, because I'm just trying to relate with like if we scold our kids, right, or thrash them because of something that they do. Even the idea is to help them get into the right path, right? The idea is to correct them.
Mhm.
But when such a small thing and we as a soul cannot understand, or the kids cannot understand, we are expecting such a fallen soul like us to get into that deep philosophy, like you are going to the hellish planet so that you can be corrected. So it's like, at least at this stage, it's like, at least for me, sometimes
But
like,
it's not being spoken for you. It's being spoken for demoniac people. You are practicing bhakti. You're not demoniac. I just explained earlier, right? Purity. Purity does not mean that you will be, one day you are impure and the other day you'll be pure. No, purity is a process. So you are on that process. Right? And because you are expressing yourself that I'm desirous of improving Krishna, you are not in the demoniac species anymore. So don't compare yourself to demoniac people and going to hell. It's not a small thing. You're talking about people, just imagine people like, they go on to do mass murdering and genocide and, so much. You cannot even imagine the extent of demoniac propensities people have. You have no idea how much they're doing. So yeah, I'm just saying, don't consider yourself in this category. It's for really people who are just incorrigible. Right? That's why there are some jails that are for the worst prisoners. Not every jail is for the worst prisoners. They have prisons for white collar criminals also. There they get more facilities. But then there are prisons for people who are murderers or who do really heinous crimes. For them, the prisons are really bad. Probably they're put in seclusions and solitary confinement and so forth. There, the punishment is also harsh. So my suggestion is, don't consider yourself to be in that last category. Did that make sense, Mati?
Yes, Prabhuji. Yes, definitely. Thank you, Prabhu.
And as I said, we don't have to try to fix every single anartha of ours. We have to just engage in service. Service gives us that the purity of character we are looking for. And once that purity of character comes, then we get Krishna's mercy. One more thing I just wanted to highlight here, the word causeless mercy. I think I spoke that. When we say causeless mercy, you have to understand that in our hand, it's only the endeavor. In our hands, there is nothing else. Prabhupada gives this example, or was it Prabhupada himself? I don't know the exact, but you will get the essence of the story. Prabhupada was once feeding ducks, and the disciples noted that Prabhupada was feeding one specific duck more. So they asked Prabhupada, why are you giving this one duck more? Prabhupada said, because the duck was quacking more. So, but that doesn't mean that Prabhupada is obliged to give that duck more, just because the duck is quacking more. It was Prabhupada's causeless mercy that he gave more to the duck. So similarly, our goal is just to put in the efforts. When Krishna gives it, how much Krishna gives it, is not in our goal. Krishna will reciprocate, but don't worry about the proportion. So I'm just, how do you manage your expectations is what I'm explaining to you. Sometimes we think, oh, I've done my part, I'm doing it so much, and Krishna is still giving me misery, and I've not become a pure devotee yet, and I'll leave all this bhakti is nonsense. No, I'll go. No, don't do that. We should not do that. So Krishna's mercy always comes, but it's causeless. We don't know when it will come, how much will come. Who knows? I have known devotees personally who throughout their lives never got any mercy. Mercy in the sense I didn't see any significant changes in them in their bhakti process or anything. But when they were leaving their body, Krishna manifested so much. Krishna sent a guru. Krishna put them in the middle of devotees. Devotees were chanting when they were leaving their body. They had prasadam to eat every day. So Krishna, you never know how Krishna gives his mercy. So we have to do the endeavor and just wait for that mercy. So that's what causeless mercy means. Just wanted to highlight that. So yes, so we covered a good amount of points as to what does this mean. So if anybody ever asks you that how is Krishna different than Jesus Christ, or the Christian, not Jesus Christ, just the Christians, who say that if you don't follow Jesus, you'll go to hell. Jesus Christ never said that. So your answer should be this, that this is just a correction and it's not permanent. Christians say that you are permanently put into hell because they think that this is the only life. So for us, no, this is not the only life. Hell is not the final outcome. And Krishna is actually crying when he puts us into hellish planets. Yes, that was 19th verse. Okay. Third canto. It is stated that an individual soul, after his death, is put into the womb of a mother, where he gets a particular type of body under the supervision of superior power. Karmana deva nitrena jantur deha papatte. That you get a body, we all get a body according to deva karma nitrena. It's under the inspection of supervision of deva, of demigods. Right? So there is always a process. Karma is not random. Karma is exact. It's not an accident, as Prabhupada is saying. They're not accidental. Attaining repeated birth among the species of demoniac life. O son of Kunti, such persons can never approach me. Gradually they sink down to the most abominable type of existence. So Prabhupada is highlighting something similar to as we were discussing. It is known that God is all merciful, but here we find that God is never merciful to the demoniac. The placing of the asuras, the demons, the lowest status of life is simply another feature of his mercy. Sometimes the asuras are killed by the Supreme Lord, but this killing is also good for them. For in the Vedic literature, we find that anyone who is killed by the Supreme Lord becomes liberated. And he mentions different asuras. Therefore, God's mercy is shown to the asuras if they are fortunate enough to be killed by him. So Krishna can give his mercy in any way. Right? So even if they are demoniac, Krishna can figure out a way to bring them out of the demoniac mentality. When Brad Bhagavatamrita, when Gopakumar finally goes to Golok Vrindavan, he meets Krishna. Krishna comes running to him. Krishna hugs him. Krishna cries. Krishna faints out of ecstasy. And he says, why? I've been waiting for such a long time for you, Gopakumar. And because you were not turning to me, I had to send a guru to you. So that's what Krishna does. However demoniac I may be, Krishna is always looking, waiting for me. And just because I'm such a dumb guy that I don't want to even start my journey towards Krishna, Krishna will send somebody. He'll send a guru whose Vani might just touch my heart for quickly and might change my heart. So Krishna does that even. When Bhagavatamrita ends, it's just a very mesmerizing scene. Krishna is hugging Gopakumar. Yes. So this is the destination of the demoniac. This verse. They sink down to abominable existence. Right? So sometimes people have to go lifetime after lifetime in that same disposition, because it's not just one wrong action. Once that we do a wrong action, it becomes a disposition, it becomes a habit. And that habit can eventually define our outer destination. So our hope for purification can only happen when we connect to Krishna. But this hope goes further and further away because for demoniac people, devotional disposition is not possible. So when we do service, we are doing physically activities that push us in the right direction. Purification begins with regulation. And Krishna will tell this in the later verses. Yeah. And as we were discussing, the more miserable we are, sometimes it becomes easy to surrender. Right? But the prerequisite to surrender is knowledge. If I don't have the knowledge, I don't know whom to surrender, I might continue suffering but wouldn't know about it. Right? So the Vedic concept of hell is very different than the Christian concept of hell. As I was saying, Christian hell is eternal torment. But Vedic hells are different classrooms. It's not meant for suffering. Well, there is suffering, but it's protecting us from more suffering in the future. That is why the concept of capital punishment exists. The whole concept of capital punishment comes from the Vedas. In the olden days, kings would kill perpetrators because if they keep living this life after doing some heinous crimes, the amount of suffering they will have to go in the next life would be proportionately more. That is why they would be hanged, so that they don't do any more crime or any more sinful activities and kind of add on to their baggage. They get the punishment, and then probably in the next life, they don't have to go into a much inferior life form. So the concept is very different, Vedic hell and the Christian hell. Yeah. Once Prabhupada was asked by one of his disciples, Hayagriva Prabhu, that Prabhupada, is hell eternal? Because earlier Prabhupada's students were all coming over, Americans, and they all were Christian background, Jewish background, but similar background. And they all had this concept that hell is eternal. So Prabhupada clearly told Hayagriva Prabhu that nothing except devotional service to Krishna is eternal. So hell is not eternal.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. So why does Krishna say that one is cast perpetually? Doesn't the word perpetually mean eternally?
Perpetually, where was that word in this? Perpetually here, right? Yeah. Yeah, it perpetually, whenever such words come, they can be perpetual from a material perspective. Right? Just like somewhere you will read, Brahma is also immortal. Somewhere we can read in Shastras it comes. But he's not immortal, he also dies. But he's just immortal according to the lifespan of us as human beings. For me, he will seem immortal, right? If I'm barely going to live 100 years and there is a person who's going to live probably 100 million years, so that person would seem immortal for me. So it's from that perspective we have to understand whenever such words are used.
Okay.
Because Krishna is also telling material existence. He's perpetually cast into a material existence. But from a spiritual perspective, just like I said, mentioned, me living 100 years versus Brahma living 1,000,000 years. Similarly, me suffering in this material world versus enjoying in the spiritual world. When I go back to the spiritual world, this suffering in this material world will be very, very tiny. It won't be like that. Oh, I've lived there for 1,000,000 years. No, it will not be a significant challenge, or not a significant time period. But for me living here, it might seem perpetual. That's why we are always called that Jiva Anadir Bahir Mukha. In Chaitanya Charitamrita said that Jiva is Anadir Bahir Mukha, that I have been phased away from Krishna eternally. But no, that's not it. At one time I was with Krishna. But because there is no track of that time, how much, so we just use words to give a generic concept. That's how we can understand this word here, Prabhu.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. So we did the 20th verse, 21. Okay, so this is now Krishna is changing gears a bit. So he's saying that, hey, I don't have any personal vendetta against people to take to hell, right? So he's saying that what is pushing people to hell is lust, anger, and greed. Right? And he's saying every man should give these up, for they lead to the degradation of the soul. We read about the degradation of the soul also earlier. Atmaja, Atmaha, killing the soul. So it's some good analogies here, good analogies and metaphors here. First is Dwaram Nashanam Atmanam. The Dwar is a door. So door is meant where, for us to go somewhere. So door is like I can go from one room to another or come into one room. Right? So when we are consumed by these three things, that consumption becomes a pathway for me to go to hell. Right? And in today's world, it's very hard because we are constantly consumed by advertisements, which are always injecting lust, anger, and greed into us. They become gates to our hell, all these advertisements. Yeah, now the situation is that instead of we going to hell, the hell is coming to us. Hellish conditions are created around us the whole time. Right? We see so much, so many activities. You know, if you read the newspaper, you know, I don't read any news, and I would suggest you can also all go on the news fast. It doesn't matter. There's no news out there that you are missing out, but it just creates so much of lust in our heart, so much of greed in our heart. You sign up for something, and then they send you a million emails, 5 emails every day. Hey, this is new. Take this, take that, and they're finding newer ways to bring that hell to us every day. So the way to leave these things are something higher is needed. Raso varjam, raso piyasa, raso varjam. So getting a higher taste, right? Which is talked about in the scriptures. And Krishna will talk about it later. So Krishna here is telling us to be careful. Otherwise, we'll all be trapped. So dwar is a metaphor of the mentality. And then there is also Nashanam Atmanam. We have talked about this metaphor also earlier in the past. Killing of the soul, right? Soul is indestructible. We have read that, right? In the second chapter. Avinashi tu tad vidhi. Avinashi, you're non-destructible. So how can it be Nashanam Atmana? Destruction of the spiritual inclination of the soul, as we discussed the last week. We read the purport from Ishopanishad also. So the beginning of demoniac life is described here. Prabhupada is just so crisp and to the point. 22. The man who has escaped these 3 gates of hell, O son of Kunti, perform acts conducive to self-realization and thus gradually attains the supreme destination. Attains the supreme destination. So after being independent from these 3 doors, the person can act for the well-being of one's soul and attain the destination. Right? So it all begins with an intention, a desire to give all this up. Then we get the direction. It's always how do you do it? It's values, action, and character. Value, action, character. Thoughts create values. Values create. So when we do some action, our values change. After our values, our actions changes, and then our character changes. So there is a step-by-step progression. The change is a process. It's happening all the time. We might or might not be aware of it, but every time you sit down to chant, you read something, you're making some tiny change somewhere in ourselves. We are making that change, and that eventually then manifests as our saving our own soul. Sometimes, like a doctor would tell the symptoms of the disease to scare a patient. Hey, this is going to happen, that's it. But the purpose is not to scare the patient, but the purpose is to teach the gravity of the problem, of the disease that the patient has. I don't know if you see in India nowadays, they have faces of cancer patients on packs of cigarettes. But it's amazing that still everybody smokes. So many people are smoking. But that's the purpose is not to scare anybody. Purpose is to tell that this could be your destination. Please don't do it. Right? So the word, and there's another interesting word Krishna uses, vimukta. We all have heard mukta, but vimukta is slightly on a higher level. Right? So vimukti is a stronger kind of liberation. That's vimukti. It also was discussed in the 9th chapter. Krishna brought it out. So people who even take a step towards spirituality, they get awakened to the miseries of life, to the gravity of those miseries, and then they strive to be released from it. So initially, our motivation of seeking liberation comes from fear of the negativity of the material reality. Oh, I'm suffering here. I should come out of this suffering. But eventually it goes to bhakti. It becomes love. Then even if we suffer in this material world, we are not worried about it. Right? Swarga apavarga tulyartha pidarshana. What's that word? Okay, so that Swarga apavarga narkeshu tulyartha pidarshana. That for a devotee, Swarga and apavarga, that's narka, is same. Tulyartha apidarshana. It becomes same for them. So yes, that's what Prabhupada is Krishna is explaining us here. By following the regulative principles of human life, one gradually raises himself to the platform of spiritual realization. If one is so fortunate by such practice to rise to the platform of Krishna consciousness, then success is guaranteed for him. Prabhupada is giving us full guarantee. 23. He who discards scriptural injunctions and acts according to his own whims attains neither perfection nor happiness nor the supreme destination. Shastra Vidya, the direction of the Shastra, is given to different castes and orders of human society. Everyone is expected to follow these rules and regulations. So Shastra, right? So here what Krishna is saying, Shastra Vidya Mutsarje, Vartate Kama Karta, Nantasiddhima Papnoti, Na Sukham, Na Param Gati. Right? Okay. So earlier verse, Krishna had used this phrase, Atmana Shreyas. So Atmana Shreyas means benediction for the self. So Atmana Shreyas was described that they become Atmana Shreyas, they become self-realized and so forth. And in here, what happens to those who are not Atma Shreyas is being described here. Right? So one who gives up Shastra because of selfishness, they will not attain supreme destination. So lust will cover our spiritual nature and keep us perpetually dissatisfied. And this Vidhi, Shastra Vidhi, why do we give it up? Because of lusty desires, selfish lusty desires. Lust makes a person difficult to achieve anything. Feelings have to be regulated and directed according to scriptures. So scriptures. Ye me matamidam nityam anutishtanti manava shuddhavanto nasrinto muchyate te abhikarmavi. So those, Krishna says that people who execute duties according to my injunctions, who follow my teachings, they become free from the bondage of fruitive action. So if let's say we are driving, right? We are drivers. If we get tickets again and again, then we have to go back to driving school. Yeah. I was in Atlanta once, and I got a ticket for, I think it was rash driving or something, and then they asked me to do a training session for 3 days or something. So that's what happens. Desires are very short-lived, but the pain they give is much more. Yehi samsparshaja bhoga dukkha yona evite. It's dukkha, samsparsha. Like the moment we touch this world, there is dukkha. So we should be always working progressively. We have to be saved from ourselves, our mind. And for that, we need Shastra. Krishna has said this it comes in I think, the 18th chapter. Amritam, that something that tastes like nectar, poison in the beginning, tastes like Amrita in the end, nectar, that's in the mode of goodness. So initially, this process seems tough for us, but outcome is always very, very nectarian in nature. You know? So the pain of discipline, it might be uncomfortable, but the pain of regret is unbearable. When you realize that I have wasted my whole life, I could have used it, that's a really unbearable pain to live with. Okay, the last verse, 24. One should therefore understand what is duty and what is not duty by the regulations of the scriptures. Knowing such rules and regulations, one should act so that he may gradually be elevated, right? So Krishna is saying that you should know by Shastram Pramanam. So scriptures in Sanskrit are called Shastra. And where does the Shastra come from? It comes from Shashan, administration or guidance, governance. So the books which deal with governance, guidance are called Shastra. Right? There is the Natya Shastra, they teach you how to do dramas. Chanakya wrote Artha Shastra. Right? So the word Shastra doesn't necessarily mean that everything that goes on in the name of Shastra is a revelation. So we have to understand that. So here the Shastra Krishna is talking about here is the Vedic Shastras. Okay. But that doesn't mean that there is other things that are also called Shastra, according if you see in our Vedas, Artha Shastra, and so many different knowledge, there are many different Shastras that are there. So you have to understand what Shastra Krishna is talking about here. And even in the Shastras, what Krishna is referring to, scriptures, there is a hierarchy. This is the last verse, the 24th, right? This is, yes. So I'll just take a couple of minutes to talk a bit about Shastras, right? So we have so many Puranas, and there are 18 Puranas in total. Okay. And the Matsya Purana tells us that 6 Puranas are Sattvic, that is in the mode of goodness. 6 Puranas are Rajasic, in the mode of passion. And 6 Puranas are Tamasic, in the mode of ignorance. So Skanda Purana is one of the, it's a Shiva Purana. It's a Shiva Purana. And there it's been mentioned that if there is a contradiction between Shastras which are in the mode of ignorance and passion, and there's a contradiction versus those versus the one in the Sattvic, you should always follow what is in the Sattvic scriptures. So Sattvic scriptures are always considered higher. So we have to also look at the contents of the Shastra. So it's as we have said in the past, bhakti is not single level, it's multi-level. Krishna doesn't want to leave anybody out. Therefore, even the Shastras are in different grades. Right? There are people who are so much engrossed or so much attached or delusioned into, let's say, meat eating or drinking. There are provisions for them also, that you can offer to some deity in Kali Puja, and then you can take it. At least you have some sense of gratitude. So that is your first baby step towards Krishna consciousness. So understand that the Shastra here Krishna is talking about his Shastras like Srimad Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita. And he's using that word here. What was that? Mam, he used the word mam, right? Which verse was that? 22. 21. Yeah. The persons cannot approach me. So to approach me, you have to read the Shastras, which Krishna has given us, which are in alignment with what Krishna is teaching us. So that's something to keep in mind. That Shastras, you might see many things as being called Shastras. So even when we say, right, Prabhupada was very respectful of Jesus and Muhammad. And but then he would say that not many of the people are following the original tradition. So it's a debatable issue that people are following what actually Muhammad or Jesus said, right? So for the Vedic tradition, Krishna has given us ways for elevation. So the revelation, so it's not just, it's what I'm trying to come to. It's not that Krishna just gives Shastras or scriptures to us Hindus or to people who are following this born in India. He gives to others also, but that's according to time, place, and circumstance. And if people follow those Shastras according to the way it's been best given, their elevation will also happen. Right? So we don't entirely accept what those Abrahamic religions say, but we don't reject them also. We have to understand all of that in the light of Bhagavad Dharma, right? So Even as I was saying, even in the Vedic tradition, there are contradictions between Puranas. But we always have to look at what is the Nirnayak Shastra, that is the deciding Shastra, most important Shastra. Then for us, Bhagavatam is the most important Shastra. Bhagavatam is Amalam Purana, as we have been told, right? In the first verse, Janmadya Sayata Anavedya Bhigya Surat Tene Brahma Hridaya Yadi Kavaye. So he's saying, so that's the message. It's a very non-sectarian message coming. That please tell us what is beyond all these dharmas that are being talked about. What is the highest dharma? And that's what's being given in the Bhagavatam. So Bhagavatam is the cream of all the Vedic knowledge. And that's coming from, so that's the Amal Puran, out of all the 18 Puranas in illusion, or in ignorance and passion. So we should have this understanding what Shastra means. Okay? So Shastra for us is what Krishna is giving us. But at the same time, we should not reject completely what the others are saying. What been given to other faiths and religions, it's not being followed properly. Right? The original tradition, the original revelations, they're not being followed. So God has given messages within the Vedic tradition and also outside the Vedic tradition. And then, but the revelation and the elevation of the people following it will depend according to time, place, and circumstance. Okay, this is the last verse. And this Prabhupada brings this concept out again, which he brings out in the Nectar of Instruction preface. One has to raise himself at least to the mode of goodness before the path to understanding the Supreme Lord can be opened. Don't manufacture our own way of elevation. That's the defect, and that's the demoniac mentality. All about me, selfishness. I know what is right. I'll do it. No, don't be in that mindset. Okay. Any thoughts, comments, or was the concept of Shastra clear? This is important. We should have this clarity as Bhakti Sastri students.
Hare
Thank you.
Krishna Prabhu, here, since it is mentioned that you have to follow the basic rules of the Shastras. So, I mean, are there any specific directions given other than a devotional service and chanting and for basic principles that no intoxication and all that? Is there any other directions other than that? The basic ones I'm asking, very basic ones.
You mean, are there any other directions than devotional service?
Yeah, devotional service, we know that there's no way of participating into that. Then we have to check, I'm sorry, I forgot actually that term that I was using. I mean, like we have to come to that platform of goodness that is there. And yeah, the four basic regulative principles, no intoxication, no meat eating and all that. So other than that, there are more directions for us to follow in the scriptures.
Well, as I mentioned earlier, right, we were talking, I mentioned there is Swarup Lakshana, Tathashta Lakshana. So the Swarup Lakshana, the most important quality that you have to develop is service to being a service attitude towards Krishna. Yeah, there can be others, but then we don't want to get into those details as long as we know what the basic thing is. And from that one basic thing, everything can be achieved. So by having that essential quality of surrender to Krishna, all your other Tathashta Lakshana, they become manifest. Compassion, tolerance, and all that stuff. So what I'm answering to you is, by developing that one quality of service to Krishna, whatever is given in all the Shastras will automatically be fulfilled for you. That's what it. And there's a verse in the 12th canto which says Trayate Yajatho Mukha, that in different eras there are different duties for people. But for Kali Yuga, chanting is the most important thing that's been given to us. And I think if I can find this verse, I can quickly show you. Treta Yajit. Yeah, 12:352. Open that up for you. Yes, I found that verse. So yeah, as I was saying, so there are different, in different eras, there are different suggestions. Right. So this verse.
You're talking about Yug Dharma, right, Prabhu?
Yes, Yug Dharma. So this verse. Kretaya dhyayato Vishnu, Tretayam yadato makhe, Dwapare paricharyayam, Kalo tadhari sankirtana. Whatever result was obtained in Satyug by meditating on Vishnu, in Treta Yuga by performing sacrifices, in Dwapar Yuga by serving the Lord's lotus feet, can be obtained in Kali Yuga simply by chanting the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. So yes, in the Shastras there might be other things, might be talk of deity worship, might be talk of some specific sacrifices, so on and so forth. But for us, Kali Yuga, everything has been made very simple. Just chant. That will give you the benefit from all the other, whatever the other suggestions or things that are being asked by us to do.
Yeah, this is great to know. Actually, I knew that, but I thought maybe there are more directions. Comparatively, it cannot be as simple enough, like that. So
It is
thanks
simple.
for confirming that. So we have to just cling on to the chanting of holy name, and rest will manifest. Thank you very much.
Yeah. And actually, there's another verse where they say that even though the Kali Yuga is a very bad place to be in, but there is one good quality, that here, just by chanting, all your problems are solved. What was that verse? Stihi eko
Harir
mahaguna.
Naam, Kevalam Kalo Nasti, Eva Nasti, Anyate Gata. That one?
No, not that.
No, I think this comes close to this verse only. I think it's in the same chapter that we see. I can find it. Or might be, just wait a minute, might be the words before this. Yeah, Kaler doshe nidhe rajan, astihi eko mahan guna, kirtana deva krishnasya mukta sangha param brajet. My dear king, although Kali Yuga is an ocean of faults, there is still one good quality about this age. Simply by chanting the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, one can become free from material bondage and be promoted to the transcendental kingdom. So the beauty of a well-written book is, in the beginning they give you the essence, and in the end they give you the essence. Do you know what's the last verse of Bhagavatam? Anybody knows what's the last verse of Bhagavatam? I'll show it to you. You don't have to make this. I'll just quickly show you. The last verse of Bhagavatam, actually the last two verses, they're very beautiful. Here, the essence of the whole Bhagavatam. A devotee is praying, O Lord of Lords, O Master, please grant us pure devotional service at your lotus feast life after life. This is the second last verse of Bhagavatam. And the last verse is, Nam Sankirtanam Yasya. I offer my respectful obeisances unto Supreme Lord Hari, the congregational chanting of whose holy name destroys all sinful reactions, and the offering of obeisances unto whom relieves all material suffering. That's the sum and bonum of Srimad Bhagavatam. Nam Sankirtan, and what is the last one we talked about? Devotional service. Bhakti. That's just the essence of the whole Bhagavatam. And Bhagavatam is the essence of the whole Vedas. So you have cream of the cream of the cream here. These two last verses.
Thank you, Prabhu. Again, that is great to know.
You're welcome. Okay, we have one last minute. Anything last moment by anyone? Oh no, sorry, I didn't share my screen. I think I was just speaking and I thought I shared my screen. So it's the second last and the last verse of Bhagavatam, if anybody is interested. 12:13:22 and 12:13:23, which I just quoted. Sorry, I thought I was sharing my screen. These two give the whole essence of Bhagavatam. And the last other verses I was quoting was 12:3:51 and 12:3:52. These four verses tell us that just by chanting, everything can be taken care of. Okay, any last minute thoughts for anyone?